I love being an entrepreneur and hosting this top 2.5% global show to bring you authentic talks with successful founders of companies and brands. My entrepreneurial journey started after I was left for dead. Let's learn the impactful journey of today's guest now.
When you create an account on our site, you can pick a fundraiser or a nonprofit that you want to support. So at checkout, when somebody buys your product, they can donate to that. We also just have all these initiatives that we're going to do. And again, it goes back to the fact that we're not beholden to any investors. So when the revenue comes in, it is our mission and our goal to give an ever increasing amount of our funds back.
All right, everyone. This one is fun because I did some more cold outreach on LinkedIn. About 90% or more of our show's guests are incoming, but sometimes I come across a cool entrepreneur. He is celebrating over 10 years with his company. So help me welcome Chris to the show. Welcome to That Entrepreneur Show.
Thanks, Vincent. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Of course. And we were talking behind the scenes, the challenges with LinkedIn actually trying to form these real relationships because of the bot selling. But let me promise you, we've got an awesome show here today that will resonate with a lot of you because in the beginning, this started as a nights and weekends endeavor, as he puts it. And then life changes, gets in the way, and he found himself in this full-time role. So let me start there and welcome everyone to That Entrepreneur Show. My name is Vincent A. Lancey, and today I am excited to bring you another seasoned veteran to the show. Again, congratulations on 10 years in business. Quick love to comingalive podcastproduction.com to start your podcast today. But for today, we're all things Chris. Let's go back in time when you started this little weekend endeavor, this nighttime hobby. You're a career engineer. What led you to it?
Well, I guess it's such a long story, but right behind me, that's what led me to it. I was doing my own artwork, and I was trying to find a way to get it out there and promote it. And I went down several paths and went to licensing in Vegas. I tried building my own e-commerce site. The e-commerce site led to inventory that I had to have for myself, and then the licensing show. Everybody wanted to basically knock the stuff off. They'd say, well, we think it's kind of interesting. It might be fun for our, I had a talk with Skechers actually, and they were like, we think it could be a very interesting for the inside of our shoes. But then they said, well, at the end of the day, we'll just, if we really like it, we'll have our artists knock it off and do our own thing, so we don't have to pay a licensing fee. So like I said, it's a super long story, but eventually I ran into this company called Printful. They exposed an API. And this is like a decade ago, and I developed to the API. And I just saw that, wow, I have an opportunity here to take the middleman out of all this, not have inventory, and then see where it goes. So
I love that. I'm typing here in the show notes. Saw an opportunity to remove the middleman. Everyone out there, opportunities are going to look different for everyone. They're going to come when we're not expecting them, but he kind of saw something and ran with it. But you mentioned some things there, Chris, licensing, all of these other areas. What was the hardest to adapt to as a new entrepreneur?
to be honest, what's been the most difficult for me as an entrepreneur has been the last 2 years when I finally put this on full-time mode. As you mentioned, I spent the better part of the previous 8 years building the foundation, trying different things. And it was really just experimentation because I spend most of my time in the enterprise working for, companies like CenturyLink and all these big communications companies building their software. And so this was just a way for me to keep my skills up. But what's happened over the last 2 years since I'm doing this full time is I'm actually learning that I have to become an entrepreneur. I have to become a businessman, a marketer, and a seller. And so my software was kind of very geeky as far as making it work. And now I'm going, now how do I sell it? And so that's been I'm still learning, and that's why I'm here.
I can certainly resonate. Like many entrepreneurs out there, sales can be awkward, nerve-wracking, and it's hard to get a yes, but keep putting yourselves in the right conversations. Like today, as a podcast guest, he's coming on the show, which is a great use of his time because he's got an audience of people who can benefit from his service, and we're about to dive just into that. But I want to backtrack a sec, everyone. Very similar to me, It took about 8 years to find my way, truly. We're still learning every day, but it is going to not be overnight success for 99.9% of people. You're going to have to do the nitty gritty, wear all the hats like he's learning. Oh, I've got to do some marketing, some sales. And just like entrepreneurship, I tell people in my book coaching practice, it's one thing to write a book, but then you got to sell the book. There are millions of books out there on the internet. And that was a hard thing for me because I wrote a book. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be rich, sell a million copies. That's not the way it works, right? You make $5 from Amazon on each copy. But again, like your practice, you have to be talking about it. I'm trying to be more live, I guess, on LinkedIn, more active on LinkedIn, opposed to other networks, because while vanity is nice, it doesn't pay the bills always. So LinkedIn's where I'm trying to be, put myself in great conversations like with Chris today. But Chris, now that you've been a seasoned, an entrepreneur, you're on your own, you're doing a lot. What has been the funnest part about scaling?
What has been the funnest part? Well, so I guess what I would say again is I have a very interesting situation here where I wrote the majority of the code. I have a couple of buddies. One's like this super geeky tech guy that does all of my infrastructure, so the hosting out of AWS, et cetera. And then I have another guy that's like a very super smart software guy that helps me with the really difficult problems. But when it came to scaling, what I found that's been interesting about this particular project is that I've refined the code. It's been kind of a OCD obsession of mine over the last several years. And what ends up happening is that the more time you put into it, the more you refine, the more you clean it up, the tighter and the more solid the code gets. And so where I'm learning right now as far as scaling goes is I'm just learning that, the time spent the effort put in is time well spent if you really want this thing to be able to reach the masses and to be able to have a good experience for everybody.
I love your dedication to refining your project, and I understand the obsession with your baby in entrepreneurship. This is what it is. We spend so much time and maybe some dreams even on it, right, while we're sleeping. But who would you say is your target customer? Who can you best serve?
Well, so there you go again. As far as, as you'll learn from a lot of people will learn, and probably especially the younger crowd now, people will tell you is get a minimum viable product, fail fast, get it out there, figure out where your target is, and then pivot, learn, and whatever. And so this last 2 years, as we're actually trying to go to market, trying to get it out there in front of people, it's evolved a little bit. But I can tell you what our target market now is. I've spent a tremendous amount of time making this dead simple.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know my competition is stiff. I know there's like WooCommerce and Shopify and Etsy and all these other places that are out there. But what we've done is we've gone after making it very simple. You don't have to set up a website. You don't have a domain name. You basically, just like Facebook, you create an account and then you start building products. And so you can literally go from having absolutely nothing, talk to AI, and have a coffee cup with a unique image on it and ready to sell. Literally, you can then sell it and be making money by the end of the day. And so our target audience, to answer your question, is all those people out there, the social media influencers, all those people out there on TikTok and YouTube, everybody that's looking to monetize, do the day hustle, that's looking for a way to build a little bit of extra revenue on the side without having to do all the hassle around it. So that's our sweet spot, I think.
I love it. And I like how you're saying there, so what? There's competition. There's these big dogs in the arena. We're going to do something that's unique. And I've learned in entrepreneurship, while it may take some time, authenticity does rise to the top. If you're authentic, you will find a way to keep going. But I know you've got good advice here too with funding. Did you seek funding? Do you plan to? Or what's your thoughts on this as now you're thinking?
One thought is that I'm glad that I never did, because now I have complete control over everything. But in the past, I went down that path several times looking for people because I thought I was onto something. I have a good idea. It seems like there's a huge market potential. I'll probably fail on which two questions I always get answered, but one was always like, what's your competition? And, you talk about Printful and WooCommerce and Shopify and Amazon and everybody else, and they'd be like, well, that seems kind of foolish. Why are you going against those guys? And the other question they'd always ask is, what's your revenue? And I'd go, I don't have any revenue. And so, the conversation pretty much ends at that point with the big dogs. Unless you have like a brilliant idea that nobody's ever come up with before, it's tough. But like I said, at the end of the day, I'm like super stoked that I'm in a position now where I haven't sought funding. And one of the reasons why is that, now that I am in this competition with all these big dogs, I can race them to the bottom. I can keep going, lowering my prices and lowering my margins, because at the end of the day, I don't have a huge team to support. I don't have big investors to impress. So, and I know that's not typical. I know it's not typical entrepreneurial advice, but I'm just saying that there is something to be said for uh, having that control.
I 100% agree. I also have never taken funding. That's partly why things have taken so long. But of course, you see things through. And you mentioned you like having that control.
Yep, absolutely. And it's kind of like I wanted to say earlier, it made me laugh when you said about, you know, immediate, overnight success. It's like I keep telling everybody, after 10 years, I'll run into people and they'll be thinking that, wow, you're an overnight sensation because they just finally found out about it. But that's the whole thing is like this journey is very long. It's like I've been coding away like obsessively for years, but it's starting to get there. It really is.
A lot of long hours unseen, and that's just part of the game. You're building something from nothing. If you want something more secure, there's nothing wrong with that, getting a 9 to 5. But entrepreneurship surely isn't for everyone, but you've done a whole lot. I do also want to touch on something. You have this buy now, do good slogan. Where'd that come from?
That's if I have to say, that's probably I owe that to my wife. And like a lot of entrepreneurs today, you want to have that good feel good message. You want to get out to the people that want to do more than just make money. And it's also just a good way to attract people. But what happened is over the years, I've gone back and forth. It's like I just want to sell this thing and cash out and move on to the next thing. And my wife basically kept insisting that this is the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. And over time, I've really owned it myself. And so we've spread it out throughout the whole site. We have over 14,000 nonprofits integrated with the site.
Oh my gosh.
Every user, well, and when I say that, it's because we have all of those, we have all that database imported into us. So when you create an account on our site, you can pick a fundraiser or a nonprofit that you want to support. So at checkout, when somebody buys your product, they can donate to that. We also just have all these initiatives that we're going to do. And again, it goes back to the fact that we're not beholden to any investors. So when the revenue comes in, it is our mission and our goal to give an ever increasing amount of our funds back to the world at large. You can see it on our site. We have several pages about our mission and our initiatives that we're going after. And at the end of the day, I feel great about it. It's like it's going to make it even more fun.
I got to ask, what is your favorite nonprofit to work with? And I'm not asking you to be biased or pick some over others. Who's shown you a lot of love, or maybe another reason why you enjoy supporting them?
Like I said, it's one of those things where it's a personal option for everybody that's owning a store. And I have several storefronts on Buynow. And I live in Boulder, Colorado. I spend a lot of time in the outdoors. And so I'm all about the World Wildlife Foundation and those types of organizations that are out there trying to preserve things for the rest of us. So,
yeah, I visited Colorado. I went to see my lowly Jets take a loss against the Broncos a few years ago, and I did some hiking. Even with my bad leg, I took my time, but I got to catch them outdoors. Here in Florida, we've got great beaches, but it's a straight line. You drive on that highway, you're just going straight, not much scenic routes. So I love how you find your outdoor roots. Do you find that spending some time outdoors helps you mentally as an entrepreneur?
absolutely does. I run into difficult problems all the time where it's just with the coding, where you're trying to solve some difficult problem or the go to market stuff. And as you can see, I'm getting a little bit older, and I've learned that it's sometimes the best option is to go for a hike, just set it aside, and halfway through the hike, sure enough, you'll be like, there's so it's a time saver.
I'm big. I get exercise in the mornings and throughout the day. Right out here, I have a sidewalk up outside the building where I just get outside when I'm intentional screen breaks, of course, but I go outside, just need to clear my head. Ideally, if I can get to the beach for a few minutes around the corner, just to get recentered and I'm not like big into like the hoo-ha out there, but I do believe, because I've done it with the nature resetting you, feet on the ground. It does some wonders. And as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of stress throughout the day. So finding something that works for you is important. What else do you do besides hiking, Chris?
Well, for outdoor activities, we mountain bike. It's a funny story. When I started college in the 80s, that there weren't mountain bikes. And like my second year into college, the first mountain bike came out. And I took the credit card that they offer you when you go to college, and I went down and I bought a Trek one of the first Trek mountain bikes. So, anyways, the mountain biking is one of the things that I really enjoy, and we're getting into electric ones as well, which are just fantastic. It's so much fun to be able to you can go further, but they have these great new mountain bikes that you can take anywhere, but you can have the electric assist as well. So which just opens up all sorts of other options. So
I love how you're not highlighting be lazy on the electric. You're like, I get more out of it. I love that. Well, if we're visiting Colorado, what's the one place we've got to ride on?
if you're visiting in Colorado,
What's
oh my
like your
God,
favorite trail?
the one place, it kind of depends, but Crest Butte is like there's I think it's called the two up in Crest Butte, and you hit that like in July with the wildflower season popping, and that's the mountain valley up there, just spectacular. I'd say that's pretty high on the list. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I try to give the audience some natural conversation too, of course. But before I let you go, what's one piece of advice you can give any early stage founder from your experiences that you wish maybe you knew back when you started?
One piece of advice, I guess the advice that keeps resonating with me over time is that people are very quick to tell you what won't work and why it won't work. You don't want to be foolish about it, because if you have a bad idea, you need to hear that. But be prepared that you're going to be told a lot that it's not a good idea for a lot of reasons, and to just tough it out and ignore that crowd, because until you tough it out yourself and get through it, you just will never know.
I love the advice. Well, if you were to get advice, Chris, from any entrepreneur, dead or alive, whose brain would you choose to pick?
I want to say Musk, but he's so controversial lately that I have a hard time with Musk. But I like the fact that he's a first principles guy. I got physics training in my background, and it's I think his way to look at things differently is very unique. So and then also it's like Bill Gates as being an old guy comes to mind, because I think in both cases, and what I think in hindsight is, even though these guys are like super smart, they understand business. And I think that's where my blind spot has been over the years, is that I'm more techie than I am business guy. And like I said, that's kind of where I'm having to find it and fake it now. So.
Well, hey, you're doing a heck of a job, because lasting 10 years, I know firsthand, because we're just getting to 10 years, is a very hard thing. So big congratulations to you again, Chris, on reaching that decade mark. So now the exciting part for me is I get to witness the growth on the second 10 years now that we're connected on LinkedIn. So that is a good place to find Chris, but it may be a tough place to find Chris because of the way LinkedIn is. Where is the best place for people to check out all the work you do and say hello?
There's our website, and there's an email. You can find an email address. It's actually io.buynow@gmail.com. So definitely reach out to me there. And LinkedIn's not that hard. I look about the same on my LinkedIn profile. So just look for Chris Argo out there, and would love to chat with anybody that's interested. So.
I definitely agree. You're worth the conversation, because you were interesting and you gave a lot of value back. If you're on the live stream, you're going to be able to check out his links here on the bottom. And in case you're listening to audio after it goes live, buynow.io. A lot of value for entrepreneurs out there. And again, my name is Vincent A. Lancy. This is That Entrepreneur Show. Thank you for tuning in and helping keep this show a top 2.5% global show. Remember to subscribe to stay current with our community of entrepreneurs. And with that, we're signing off today from Florida, all the way up and away to Colorado. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Vincent. Really appreciate it.